Blog Talk Radio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to IHWE Radio. This is a very special edition of IHWE Radio, and our normal theme song doesn't really fit with tonight's show, so we'll play that before we go into our second hour. I'm live in Fort Worth, Texas, where we've got an esteemed roundtable tonight. We try to do these every few weeks and bring wrestling fans all over the world something very special, and this is a very special podcast, so we'll get right into it. David Fuller, I'm taking over the host position tonight, the founder of IHWE Pro Wrestling. Michael McCurdy, the author of Encyclopedia of World Class Championship Wrestling, out in sunny California. Michael, how's it going?
Doing pretty good, David. Not quite so sunny over here, but we'll deal with it. But we do have a great show tonight, so let's get this going.
Okay, yes. We do have a great show lined up, so let's get rocking and rolling. I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel before we get going. Tonight's show is a celebration of the life and the career of one of the greatest men to ever lace up a pair of boots, the legendary Terry Bam Bam Gordy, member of the Fabulous Freebirds, legendary tag team also with Dr. Steve Williams, Mid-South UWF heavyweight champion. He wrestled all over the world. Anybody who knows anything about pro wrestling knows who Terry Gordy is. If you don't, you're not a true fan. On our panel tonight, we have manager, promoter. If I named off everything this guy's done in the wrestling business, we'd be out of time by the time I was finished. Jim Cornette is back with us. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. And that's why Michael's in California. I roasted him so bad last time I was on. He wanted to get as far away from me as he could. but I couldn't turn down when you told me the subject of tonight was Terry Gordy. That's why I wanted to be involved, and I appreciate you asking me.
Not a problem, Jim. This is going to be a fun show. Okay, our next member of this panel, again, everybody knows who this is. He's a WWE Hall of Famer. He's another legendary wrestling star. One of my all-time favorites, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's great to be with you, man. When I was asked to do this podcast, I jumped at the opportunity because Terry Gordy not only was a great wrestler, but he was a very special friend to me as well. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ted. And last, certainly not least, this lady has become very close to our organization. She's been a huge supporter. She's a wonderful person, and again, I cannot stress how supportive she has been. She was the wife of Terry Gordy, and just a wonderful, wonderful lady, Connie Gordy. Thank you again for coming back on tonight.
Hey, David, good to be back with you. Gosh, it's great to hear those two voices on the other end. Long time.
Yeah, good to hear your voice too, Connie.
Yeah, Connie, it's great. We actually got a chance to catch up for a couple minutes before we went on the air, and hopefully you remember my email address.
Yes.
But don't give it out here.
You got a cell phone number for these people, too? I'll go ahead and put that in.
Yeah, and my Social Security number is 1.
Yes.
Go ahead, give it to them, Connie. Everybody's got a price.
Well, Jim, if the old WCW hotline was still in business, you could get up on Gene Okerlund and you could give that out as your phone number and just see how that works out.
Yeah, we can't talk about it here, but you can call the hotline.
Will there be nightfall? Okay, Team Gene. All right, we got a little bit off subject. We're going to kick right into it. I'm going to start by asking Connie, and like I said, we're just going to have a discussion tonight. So, Ted, Jim, feel free to jump in at any moment. We don't really have a format. Let's just kick back and tell some stories. We're going to be listening. Me and Michael are, because y'all knew Terry better than anybody. Connie, when did you meet Terry?
Well, it was right at the end of 1983. Actually, it was just a few weeks before the passing of David Von Erich, right along in that time, in Denton, Texas.
So you met him when he was working for World Class?
Yes, and the funny story always was because he was introduced to me by a friend of my brother's that worked at the Goodyear store, and I thought he worked at the tire store. Had no idea who he was.
I can see Terry pushing those tires.
Oh, it was our joke forever. Yeah.
Well,
I can appreciate that, Connie, because when I met my wife, Melanie, she thought she was getting an autograph from one of the football players from the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm signing this autograph, and she was oblivious to actually the guy that I stole her from, who was her date at the moment, was the fan, right? And he said, "Hey, this girl wants your autograph," and so I started signing this autograph. She goes, "What number are you?" And I said, "Ma'am." And she goes, "Yeah, what number? You play for the Falcons, right?" And I go, "No." I said, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a professional wrestler." She goes, "You mean like that fake stuff on television?" That's how we started.
Well, Connie,
I can identify with the tire story.
Connie, until now, I didn't realize I met Terry before you did.
Yeah.
I met him when we were both 15 years old. When he started wrestling, gosh, what was he, 13 when he actually
13,
started?
That's what he told me. He was 13 years.
Well, he came to Louisville. He came to the Memphis territory for a couple of weeks in 1977. And I was taking pictures at the Gardens, but we were both like 15 years old. But the rib there was Robert Gibson obviously knew him, and he came up to me. He said, "How old do you think that kid is?" And I said, "Well, he's 6'4" or 5 or whatever. He's 260 pounds, but he's got the baby face. He's got to be, he's 20, right? Maybe 15. I'm like, Jesus, he's the same age as me. He's twice as big. But he actually, for 15 years old, I'd seen him wrestle and thought, okay, he's a green kid, but he looks great. He's going to make it or whatever. But if I'd have known he was 15 years old, I would have fainted.
Absolutely. He used to tell me stories about when he was in school, because he said, they kind of made fun of me and looked at me like, "Oh, really? How old are you really?" Because he said he was just that height already at like 13. So,
yeah, they must have thought the hardest 4 years of his life was fourth grade.
Yes, exactly.
Does anybody know? Does anybody know what year that the Freebirds, or at least I don't know if they were even the Freebirds at that time, but when Michael and Bam Bam came to work for Bill Watts the first time?
Well, actually, you can defer to my obsessive compulsive disorder because I know that.
I'm sure you do. The encyclopedia.
Actually, I feel like Forrest Gump here now, because I'm going to start to say, okay, I was at every crucial point in Terry's life, but actually, I was at Memphis TV. They came in to work for Nick Goulas in very early 1979 in the Nashville office when he was still running apart from Jerry Jarrett, who had taken the Memphis end. You know what I'm talking about, Ted.
Right, I do.
And he wouldn't let them call themselves the Freebirds. It was Pretty Boy Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy, because Nick was so old-fashioned. Well, the Freebirds, who is Leonard Skinner? Who's he?
Yeah, right.
And they're taking them marijuana pills again. So they worked there for several months, and then they got booked by Jerry Jarrett, and he let them use the name Fabulous Freebirds. So on Memphis TV in July of 1979, I was there taking pictures, and at the fans convention when they were announced as the Freebirds for the first time on TV, and then that Monday night I was there. And Ted, you remember Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis?
Yes, I do.
And Connie, you do too. We were both taking pictures at the Mid-South Coliseum that Monday night. He was down from Pittsburgh. And here they start playing Freebird. And that was the first time they ever came to the ring playing Freebird. And they came out in the silver robes. And and Michael's hair was glowing, right? And he's doing the strut where it looks like he's walking in slow motion, but he's got everything going. And there's Terry. And I looked at Brian and I said, this music thing could catch on.
Catch on. It did. Oh, my gosh. I mean, they were the first guys. They were the first guys to come to the ring with a music entrance, and now it's commonplace. The first
it's
time
mandatory.
That I met,
it's mandatory.
Yeah.
The referee gets music.
The first time that I met Michael and Bam Bam were when they came to work for Bill Watts.
And I'm sorry to answer your question real quickly. They left Memphis and came straight there, so it was right at the end of 1979.
Right, and I started for Bill in '75, and so I had been working like for 4 years, so I had a little bit of time under my belt, and things were starting to go good for me. But I'm going to tell you what, the first time I saw these guys, I was like, oh my gosh, and I, 1979. So how old would that have made Terry at that time?
He was 17, right, Connie?
Yeah, about that, because Ray was born in 79.
I think that's exactly right, because
he was 17 when Ray was born. So
I couldn't believe that he was just 17 years old, and as far as work, oh my gosh, and I told Michael way back then, because Michael's got that creative gene, right? And I told him then, I said, one day you'll be a booker, or you'll have something to do with booking, because he was always sharp with his psychology of the business. But Gordy was probably one of the most natural workers I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, remember when you'd shoot him across the ring and he'd fly and he'd take the Ray Stevens upside down, but bounce up and fly out, and just for a guy that size, he was incredible, and it was instinctive. He always knew where he was.
It's unbelievable, and it didn't matter where he was. I mean, when he went to Japan, he got over in Japan, and Japan is a different style, and he was every bit the athlete there that he was, in the States, and just phenomenal. I mean, and I guess if you grow up with something, then I understand that, because I had a love for the business from a very young age, because I was raised by a wrestler too. Or not two, but I was raised by a wrestler, so it was like, from the time I was old enough to talk, I was watching wrestling, and it was just kind of in my blood. But if he started at 13, then he was a big fan before he ever got in the ring. But I'm gonna tell you, he was so good, just naturally, and McMahon said this to me one time, and he said, "You know what, Ted?" And Terry Gordy fits this description well. He said this to me. He said, "You remind me of Ray Stevens." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because if you ever asked Ray why he did what he did at any particular time in the match, except the finish, he really couldn't explain it, because he did everything naturally as it came to him." And I said, "You're exactly right." And that was Gordy. And he was just brilliant on his feet.
Jim, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim. Okay.
I was just going to ask Ted personally how it felt because another Forrest Gump moment, I actually saw the Atlanta TV where they gave you the 4 pile drivers live as it happened, not in the studio, but at the broadcast. And those were some wicked-looking pile drivers. I mean, you sold them well, but they were flatter than a pancake. But at the same time, obviously, he wasn't dangerous at all.
No, not at all. My head never hit the ground. And I watched it back. I've watched it back on several different occasions, and it looked like he was driving me right into the concrete. And I mean, that angle gave me like new life, and I don't know if you know the background about that, Jim. It's like when I first went to Atlanta, they were touting me as possibly being in line to maybe be the next NWA World Champion, and
yes,
Ole Anderson had left, wasn't booking anymore, and he brought in who was the guy? Robert Fuller.
Robert Fuller.
I love Robert, but Robert was a horrible booker. His brother was pretty good. I said, Robert couldn't find his button with both hands. And
there's actually a whole story in the Memphis territory of how Robert got the territory basically down so low that Jerry Jarrett had to fire him, and he took all his guys back to Knoxville in 1 week, and Jarrett tripled the houses in 3 weeks with the Tupelo concession stand brawl.
Well,
and Robert, that was actually pretty much right before he went to Atlanta and did the same thing there.
Right, and what so I went to Atlanta, and so he's supposed to be pushing me, and I heard him tell that to Jim Barnett told him that. Well, I was going back and forth to St. Louis, and Mushnick says, "Hey Ted, how's Atlanta?" And of course I'm a young guy. I told him the truth. I said, I don't know why, but I said Jim's hired a booker that couldn't find his ass with both hands. And, of course, that went right back to Jim, and then I got on Jim's shit list, and Buck came in. When Buck came in and took the book, that was Buck's idea. The angle with Terry and Michael, where I went to the hospital, and that whole deal was to save me and give me new life.
Oh,
there.
Beautiful.
That's what it did.
And Buck obviously knew, how good the Freebirds were because he'd just come from Louisiana, hadn't he? Where they'd done the whole thing with,
Yeah, it was like, for us it was like a reunion, because I had been with them down in Mid-South, and then I was there with them again. I can't remember which time, but I remember that I went to Japan, and it was one of those deals where I wrestled, and I left Tokyo, and it's like it's an 8.5, 9-hour flight back to the States, and then a connecting flight. I had to fly back into Shreveport, I think it was, and wrestle. Oh no, it wasn't Shreveport, it was Houston. And I was like I didn't know what time zone my body was in. And I got in the ring, and I was working with Gordy, and I said, Terry, I said, brother, I said, take the helm of this ship. And I said, because I'm so tired, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And brother, it was so easy. If it had been anybody else, I don't know what it had been, but he made it so easy, and he took such good care of me. It was just, I'll never forget it.
Jim, I got a question. You were working with Vince McMahon when Terry came in to WWF right in the midst of the Monday Night Wars, and I've never read why. My assumption, and as an outsider, as a fan, was you took Mick Foley, who for years had been known as Cactus Jack, you repackaged him.
Well, now don't say you. Don't say you. Oh no! You're right. You're right.
The creative members. Let's get straight. Jim was a manager. Ted
Actually,
was
you could
for
narrow it
WCW.
down to Vince McMahon. You could just narrow it down to
McMahon.
Vince.
Short list.
Yeah.
Short list.
Yeah.
Short list.
Yeah. So anyway, so WWF, Vince McMahon, he repackages Mick Foley. He's got Percy Pringle as Paul Bear. They bring in Terry. They make him the Hooded Executioner. Jim, did you ever find why was Gordy brought in as the Executioner, and why did his tenure was so limited there? I was always curious.
Well, let me admit to my culpability in any of this, in that after Smoky Mountain Wrestling had closed, because Terry had come up and worked for me most of '95, I believe, most of the year, and when we closed, I went to Stamford, worked in the office, and pitched several guys to my eternal dismay. Please give a job to the Dirty White Boy. He's a great talent. Please give a job to Tracy Smothers. He's a great talent. Please give a job to Terry. A number of the people that you saw pop up at that point in time. However, once that left my mouth, the rest of it was up to them. That Tracy became Freddie Joe Floyd, and the Tony Anthony became a plumber, and Terry had a mask, and it got way out of hand, and I felt bad. So that's my responsibility.
Well, you know what, Jim? That's just like Vince making Terry Taylor the Rooster.
The Red Rooster.
Remember when he brought Neidhart in, but he didn't really trust him because of things that had happened in the past, so he just put him under a mask and called him Who, so the announcers could go, who is that? It's Jim
like
Neidhart. How
bee.
can you hide that body, right? So, but anyway, no.
He looked like a big killer bee.
I prefer to think that I prefer to remember Terry's run for me in Smoky Mountain Wrestling from that period and forget about the Executioner part, because he really didn't give him a chance to show what he could do to begin with.
Right.
And I'm sure he was not comfortable wearing a mask for the first time in his life.
No.
Well, let me tell y'all a little bit what happened there. They went up to fit him. Terry was not excited whatsoever about that whole thing. Okay? They went in, and y'all know how his hair's been his whole life. Well, he had it in a ponytail, whatever left. The girl went to fit him for the hood. She combed it all back, braided it down the back, and whacked the whole ponytail off to fit that hood.
Oh,
He brought that ponytail home. I still have it today, and I knew right then we were going to have a problem.
Wow.
Oh, no.
That did it for him, and he was never really happy there. So you can't. I mean,
Connie,
that really was basically what it was. It was his decision, kind of go. He'd rather just go to Japan, fill in a little here and there, Smoky Mountain, whatever, whatever the other little thing. But he really had rather have just gone on. But I knew from when he walked in our back door, holding that ponytail, and his eyes were big as stars, we were going to have a problem with him.
Oh my!
So you're surprised he lasted as long as he did up there.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, and that's why I felt bad at the time for these guys. I'm like, oh, I got you a job. Oh no. But Terry was such a pleasure to work with in Knoxville, though. I mean, he come right. It was close to home for him. He knew everybody. Guys that he had worked with, Ricky and Robert and Dr. Tom, guys that he had worked with since he started out would come through. So he felt at home. Everybody, they respected him. The young guys like Chris Candido was just almost like a puppy the first time he was in the locker room with Terry Bam Bam Gordy. And so it was great, and he lent credibility to the Cards because of his name.
Well, he loved it. He would have been happy forever just going to Japan and then doing things like that with you guys. That's his people. When I go to the Texas Shootout every year and see those guys from Texas, and I just left Coastal Mania visiting with Kevin and his family, all the Von Erich family, all our old Texas family, plus some of the other old school guys. That would have been where he would have loved to go. Those are his people.
Yeah, and I tell you, Terry and Michael, now today with the reunion circuit and the fan fests and et cetera, they would be a hit, to say the least, as a team together.
Wow,
unbelievable!
Yeah, see, that was our thing. We had to for the Midnight Express, which we considered ourselves to be, quite the accomplished tag team manager combination, right? But we had to follow the Freebirds, even though it was a couple of years in between. We had to follow the Freebirds in Mid-South, and then we had to follow the Freebirds in Dallas. So finally we got to Crockett, and we didn't have to follow the Freebirds. If we didn't have the records, they did, right? Especially the Superdome thing, we came just shy of it. I was like Newman. We just almost made it.
Ted, I got a question for you. You talk about, obviously, you were one of the guys that went over to Japan, one of the Gaijins that went over to Japan, and you're, you have a legacy over there. Terry had the run with the Freebirds, huge run down here. Don't have to talk about it. Everybody knows about it. Was the UWF heavyweight champion for Bill Watts. And then somewhere along the lines, Terry got together with Dr. Death Steve Williams, and they formed another tag team that I started reading about in PWI, and it just, what is it? You worked with Terry over Japan, you worked with Stan Hansen. There were a select few of Gaijins that went over to Japan and were brought back several times.
You sound like such a white boy when you say that word, by the way.
Well, I am. Very much. I think I'm as white, Jim. I think we're both pretty white and pasty, to be honest.
As Jim Ross once said about Bob Caudle in a production meeting, and you've got this guy, and then here he's interviewed by Bob Caudle in brown shoes, the epitome of a white man. Go ahead with your question. I didn't mean to derail the train.
No, you're fine. This is great. But Ted, you talk about Japan. Talk about or just kind of put your opinion on this. Terry and you, Stan Hansen. Talk about going over to Japan and Terry forming this team with Dr. Death. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, it was, and I'm telling you, and the thing about Japan that a lot of the fans here might not understand. It was a work, but it was a 3/4 shoot. It's like the style in Japan is like they're going to make you earn their respect, so to speak, and so. Right off the bat, when you get in the ring with those guys over there, and I've told anybody that ever went over there to work, they're going to test you. And I said, they're going to get stiff as hell with you. And I said, and when they do, I said, you get just stiff as hell back with them. And once you've earned your respect, and then you can do anything. And, of course, with Terry, as big as he was and the ass kicker that he could be, obviously there was no trouble in him earning anybody's respect. So, and then you add that to Steve Williams. Give me a break, right? They were a phenomenal team. And then I had been going back and forth for several years, and then when when Bruiser Brody left All Japan and went to New Japan, Stan Hansen came to me and he said, "Hey, I need a new partner. Do you want to be my partner?" And I said, "Who do I want to be your partner?" I says, "Is the Pope a Catholic? Are you kidding?" I mean, Hansen at that time and Brody were just huge. But so there I was teamed up with Hansen then, and Doc and Gordy were teamed up, and oh my gosh, we had some great matches. I got to tell you this one of the funniest stories. I'm with Gordy, and we get a day off in Japan, and there's this guy over there that all the wrestlers know. His real name is Setsuo Izawa. Everybody called him Joe, the Pearl guy, and he had a pearl shop and at the International Arcade in Ginza, which is the big shopping district in Tokyo. But for years, actually, the first time I went to Japan in 1976, I was 22 years old. Jack Briscoe came in for one show. He was a world champion. He took me with him, and that's the first time I met Joe. But everybody knew this guy that was anybody in wrestling, and so we get this couple of days off. And when the Japanese invite you to their home, it's a very special deal. I mean, it's like, because they really have to like you. Joe invites me and Bam Bam to his house, for a meal, and so we get on this, one of the trains, and we go out. He set the whole thing up so we wouldn't get lost, and so we go to his house, and I mean, he feeds us like kings. Now, you got to understand, we sit down at the table. In the middle of the table, there is a brand new, untouched, uncorked bottle of Jack Daniels. And I looked at Joe and I said, "Trouble." "Are you out of your mind?" And so, I don't think he understood. And so, so we start having the kampai and the drinks and the salutes and everything. And oh my gosh, boy, Terry, when he got lit, he was like a bull in a china shop anyway. This great big guy, fun-loving. I mean, nothing. It was all pure fun. But I mean, he's laughing and everything. And finally, I said, "Joe, please get us a cab and get us out of here before this bull tears up the china shop." And so we get in a cab. This cab it's the middle of summer, and this cab's got to take us back from Joe's house to the hotel where we're staying. And it's a thing with the Japanese in the summertime. They don't like shave their heads bald, but they all get like crew cuts, right? And so the cab driver's sitting there, and we're both drunk. And we're sitting in the back of the cab, and Terry just kind of starts looking at the back of this cab driver's head, and he goes, and he just smacks him on the head. He just smacks him on the back of his head, and the guy whips around, and I'm going, "Komendasai," which means I'm sorry. I said, "Please forgive him, drunko." So you get you get used for everything in Japan if you're drunk, right? So I said. And then I lean over to Gordy and I go, "Look, you idiot!" I said, "If you don't settle down, this guy's going to drop us into the river somewhere, right?" And so by the time we get back to the hotel, we're both passed out. I mean, literally, he pulls up in front of the hotel, and we're leaning against each other, head to head, right? But I still have enough sense, and so I'm telling you, I mean, Gordy's like 260, 270. And I was like, he's gone. You can't. I couldn't wake him up to save my life. I kid you not. I had him. They wheeled out a baggage cart, and we got him on a baggage cart and wheeled him in. I put a blanket over him so nobody would know, And I wheel him in, and we get him on the elevator. And we get up to the floor, and and I get his key, and they had those keys, in Japan where there's the key, and then there's a great big long thing on it, so you never take it out of the hotel. You always, you leave it at the front desk, and you pick it up when you come back in. So now I got him up, and I stand him against the wall. He's standing against the wall, the back wall, on the other side of the hallway from where his room is. I said, stand right there. Don't move. Don't move. And so now I go to put the key in the door and open his door to put him in there. And he gets frisky again. He comes off that wall, and he hits me. He drives my head into the door. I mean, he's playing. He's just having fun and laughing. Is his. Well, when he did that, I broke the key off in the door. So now these two bellmen, and they're speaking Japanese faster than now they got a flashlight and a pair of tweezers, and they're trying to get this key out of there. So finally, what they did, they said they came back up with another key, and they put him in another room, an empty room. So I took him in the room. I threw him on his bed. He's laughing. I'm telling you, he's laughing the whole time like a little kid. And I literally undress him, and I said, get in bed, go to sleep, and call me tomorrow. Now, this is the funniest part. I mean, we had the whole day off, so about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rings, and I hear, Daddy, he said, did I fuck up real bad? I just started laughing. I said, no, Terry, why? He said, I woke up this morning, I was naked in my bed, and none of my clothes are in my room, and I'm not in my room. So I must have fucked up real bad.
Before the movie The Hangover, Ted, y'all were living it over in Japan every time you went over.
Oh my God!
I can vouch for that one for sure. I remember when Killer Khan used to say if he just saw Jack Daniels somewhere, because wherever we would go, that was kind of the thing that people did. And Khan would look at me and go, "Oh, trouble come up." Every time.
Yeah.
But that was the perfect gimmick for those guys. I think that's really what they had a great run in Louisiana, and I loved watching them on TBS in the early days in Georgia. But when they got to Texas, David, you could attest to this. The three Von Erich brothers, and here comes these three wild Southern boys, but a different part of Southern than Texas, with the Jack Daniels instead of the milk that they thought the Von Erichs drank back in simpler times. But that was a perfect program. That's what Dallas really needed to go from, a territory. It was a big money territory when Fritz was younger, but it had been a long time since Dallas was a big money territory until they got there. That was perfect.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, 100%. Go ahead, Tess.
No, I never worked the Dallas territory. I worked Amarillo, and I worked the Amarillo territory, which was like up in the, they call it West Texas, but it's actually Northwest Texas, up in the Panhandle. And I had gone down. I worked a couple of shows for Fritz, but I never worked the territory, and you were right. I mean, and I've never gone there, and that territory, the Dallas territory, when Michael and Buddy and Bam Bam went in there, that's the best run that place had. Since Fritz had it on fire years and years ago. Am I right, Jim?
Oh, it was ridiculous, and that's why I said when we followed them to Dallas, we directly followed them, and they'd been on top for 2 years and sold out everything everywhere. They had to build bigger stadiums in Dallas. I still remember when we got there, the Dallas Times-Herald, for heaven's sake, had the Sunday edition, had full-color wrestler pinups of a different star from World Class, full page every Sunday. They were that big in Dallas. And then they left, and then we're in there with Gino and Chris and us and the Fantastics and the Von Erichs, and it wasn't happening just quite as well.
Well, they tried, and I was a kid during that. I was a kid. I was born in 1981, of course, but I was living here. I was living in Fort Worth, and it was Nolan Ryan. He came in later. J.R. Ewing and World Class. I mean That's what it was.
And
I mean,
and I kid because they still in '85 they were still doing business in Dallas, and actually every once in a while Michael and Terry'd come back, but tailed down shortly thereafterwards because I don't think the Von Erichs never had the antagonist to match their protagonist again, and then things started happening.
Well, they try to recreate. I think they did that angle, and Connie can probably fill it in. They did that angle in Reunion Arena a few years later when Kerry was working Al Perez, and they put Iceman King Parsons, the Angel of Death, Buddy Roberts, and Gordy together, and they beat up Fritz, and they went in one direction and then came on TV and said, no, he just fell. I mean, they tried that a few different times.
That's when the fans had already read enough in the newspapers of what was going on that they saw desperation, and it pretty much made them. I guess, Connie, if you were there at the time or anywhere around, or Ted, if you remember, that actually pretty much was the end of the beginning of the end angle that they did.
No, it was. Yeah, you're exactly right. And you're right about that. The people were reading things, and it was getting like, what's going on here? I think that the milk story. I don't think they're drinking milk anymore.
Yeah, and Ted correct soured. Ted, correct me if I'm wrong. Ted, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Vince was running Dallas twice a year at that time. I think he was running Reunion Arena twice a year with WWF, and I think that.
What year are you talking about?
I want to say, I don't know if that was 88 or 89.
No, it was earlier than that. You're into the
earlier than that,
Jarrett and what was the syndicating guy? Max Andrews and all that stuff was in there by. You're talking 87-ish.
87. Okay, so not yet.
The summer of '87 is when I first showed up on television as the $1 Million Man. That's when I went to work for Vince. And when we went to Dallas, we went to Reunion Arena, and it was just. And you're right, it was just a couple times a year.
And that was where World Class would have one of their big shows. They would run the Tarrant County Convention Center. They had stopped running Texas Stadium. That was where Kerry Von Erich beat Ric Flair on May 6, 1984 for the NWA title. They had done, I think, 3 David Von Erich shows.
You're Wikipediaing. I can tell in the tone of your voice, David.
I remember that date specifically. Nothing else, Jim. Don't ask me about any other dates, but I remember that one.
I remember that one.
You're the host. You're allowed to cheat. You're allowed to prepare. So
any other time, I would. I would.
Hey,
probably scare y'all with how much.
Here's something, and Ted, I know Connie obviously is going to know, and she can probably tell us more about it. Ted, I don't know if you know, but the reason I know is because when Terry came to work, especially in '89 when he was coming into WCW, and we got a chance, us and Doc got to work with Michael and Terry at least. We had one match with the original, two of the original Freebirds. It was Michael and Buddy in Charlotte one time. We never got to work with Michael and Terry but anyway, I was sitting in the locker room one night, and that's when he was wearing his knee braces, and of course I had my knee issues everybody knows about, and we're comparing knee braces, and I did not realize, as big as he was, as fast as he moved, bumps that he took, at one time for like years he had both his ACLs torn, right, Connie?
Yes, it was.
And then quit wearing.
We had the surgery at the same time to get them both done at the same time.
Didn't he even quit wearing the braces for a while because he felt like he lost a few pounds and he was just doing better?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, I think I can do this. But we flew to 6 different places for him to get a second opinion and another second opinion and another, because he was like, I don't want to do this. But then right there in Dallas, Dr. Yamamoto that worked on the Cowboys at the time, a friend of ours had just had him to do it, and boom.
I remember that he and I had the conversation because my first year in the business, like 1975, I'm a rookie. Towards the end of that year, I had this match with Cox down in when we were still working out in the old place in New Orleans.
The downtown or St. Bernard.
No, not the I don't know. I can't remember the name of it.
St. Bernard.
St. Bernard. When we were working at St. Bernard, I hyperextended my knee, and what I actually did that night was I blew my ACL, but I never knew it for the longest time because. Watts had me go to a doctor that was a chiropractor that practiced acupuncture. That he told me, he said I was wheeled into this guy's office after a football game at OU, and I walked out. And this guy worked on me for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I did all this ice and heat treatment. And I wore a brace just like Terry wore for the longest time. And then I stopped wearing the brace, and I just wore knee pads. But fast forward to, because I remember we used to talk about our knees, and, you know, he told me about the ACL thing. And then when I went to work for Vince, became the $1 Million Man, I'm just about ready to start the program, you know, with Hogan and the Andre thing. And I roll out of the ring, and my knee goes up. I went, what in the heck was that?
Oh, no.
You know, and it starts, you know, so I went to the doctor, and I had a meniscus tear, but he said, you know, this other knee feels awful loose. Did you ever hurt it? And I told him the story, and he said, I'm going to MRI on both. And he comes back to me, and he said, your ACL's gone in your other knee. You don't have one. He says, how did you walk? And I said, well, I did, you know, and I understand exactly what Terry went through, because, I mean, oh my gosh, a lot of people can't, you know, it's amazing what your body will do if you just keep going. And that's what
and especially at his size, being upwards of 300 pounds most of the time, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moving like that, I just thought it was amazing. And he told me the way he did it, the first one was in Japan, coming down on an atomic drop, the old ass bump, right?
Yeah.
And boom, he stuck his leg, boom, tore it, and then he tore the other one, compensating for the one that he didn't have. And I was just like, my God, and here this guy's going out here and you know, doing that. It was amazing.
Yeah, when the doctors did my double knee replacement, he said, you know, it usually takes me 1 hour to do a total knee replacement. He says, I replaced your left knee in an hour. He says, I worked on your other knee for 2 hours. He said, you had so much calcification and stuff that had built up around that knee trying to protect it. And I said, that's the one where I didn't have an ACL.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what your body will do to compensate.
Wow, unbelievable. Well, we have a caller on the line. This man was a photographer for the Aftermax for many years, and he emailed me this past weekend, said he spent a lot of time on the road with Michael and Terry. He's a good friend of Connie. Scott Goldstein, are you on the air?
Yeah, how you doing, man? Thank you, David.
I'm doing all right. I'm sorry you've been home for a while, but go ahead. And if you got a story about Terry, real quick, go ahead and get it out there. Jim Cornette, Ted DiBiase, Connie, and Michael are on the line. Michael McCurdy, go ahead.
Hey, Scott.
Sounds good. Hey, Jim, long time. Hi, Connie.
Hey.
Yeah, Connie, you know, we've kind of exchanged on Facebook a few of my favorite Terry stories over the last few months. But there's one that I just have to tell just because, you know, I think people like to hear about the side of people that they don't often see. And I'll never forget at the first annual Fabulous Freebirds Hot Fun in the Summertime Golf Classic, which Terry and Connie hosted up there on Freebird Mountain. And Terry was holding Miranda when she was just a little baby. And I looked at him. I said, "You love being a daddy, don't you?" And he looked up with the biggest smile on his face and said, "Yeah, Scott, I want me a whole mess of kids." And I just never forget that. It was just one of the more touching Terry Gordy moments in my life, you know.
And but, Connie should have had a vote in that somewhere.
Yeah. But a couple of and by the way, Ted, I'm sure you're not the only person who ever transported Terry in a baggage cart or a grocery cart or another kind of cart.
Yeah, I know.
But we had a couple of fun moments in Japan. The first. These are on the same night, and I think this is 1991. I think Fumi Saito confirmed that for me. Didn't have access to you as my historian at that time, Jim, so I had to call Fumi and get his take on it. But Terry and Steve Williams and I are walking into a bar in Roppongi, Tokyo, Japan, and as we're walking in, the bouncer looks at his friend and he says, "Don't worry about these guys, I know karate." And as quick as the words left his mouth, Terry snatched him up by his neck, picked him up in the air, gently laid him down on his back, leaned over him and said, "You don't know karate on your back." And he first snatched him up. I thought, oh, God, what's happening here? But he did it so gently, and so he just put him down and, and put the guy in his place and kept walking.
Little warning, just a little warning.
Hey, do you remember that famous clip? It was in the I know it was in the Bad Street video, but it was from World Class in the Sportatorium TV, where the fan with the beer gets up in his face, comes under the rope, and gets up in his face and says something to him, and Terry just double hand shoves him. He takes a perfect backflip back into his seat, didn't spill the beer, and gives Terry a thumbs up.
And never lost his cigarette.
That
yes, that guy never lost his cigarette. We've laughed about that tape. That's one of Terry's favorite things. That was one of his very favorite things. He goes, like that, we always live for the day. Step inside there. Go ahead, because it's your free game, if you step inside there. And the guy did. He went back he never lost a beer or cigarette. It was awesome.
That actually should probably outrank Mick Foley being thrown off the Hell in a Cell by Taker as the coolest bump ever in pro wrestling history.
It was a classic for sure.
Need a bow
and the guy didn't even get royalties.
Yeah.
He was sitting front row. He took the best bump in wrestling history, and he doesn't even know that anybody likes it.
Exactly.
All they had was a rope.
Just this weekend in Costa Mania, that was brought up. Lori Hurst that used to, pick us up and take us to places to do everything. She was a friend there, and she was down there. We brought that up because that was like everybody's favorite clip. It was actually, I think, filmed at Will Rogers possibly. We got to thinking about it, where it was and when it happened, but it was every Friday night when the show came on, that was the intro. So
yeah. It was classic.
A little thin rope. That's all they had. Never understood that. A little thin rope. They could afford to run to the stadium.
At least the guys got to be in the ring with 3 feet of height and some ropes in between so you could catch them coming through. I was out there on the floor with them with that little thin rope. Boy, I felt secure.
With some very angry senior citizens, Jim, with a lot of cheap Texas beer. And
hey, I've got to say this, and Connie, I'm sure you know, I'm trying to call the guys' names, but the black hat guys, all of them. There was 3 or 4 that we had in the territory.
Bill Caldwell's one of them. Yep, Bill Caldwell.
Bill Caldwell, and then Lonnie, and I can't remember that third guy, but this weekend Bill was there at Coastal Mania, and he brought that hat because everybody's like, bring the hat, do the whole thing when you take Kevin and to the ring. And we did it this weekend like that, and it was, of course, Bill is 61 years old now, so he goes, what? I got a what? Of course, Kevin just when his music, when LaGrange starts playing, Kevin took off running the boys, and Bill's looking like, what? This is not 1985, guys. He did a great job. It was really nice.
Yeah, when those guys were there, and they were there at Sportatorium, and they were there at most of the major shows, I always was fine. And I felt good about it because they were great. When they weren't there, if it came to it, then it was a little tougher time, spot shows and things like that. But I remember one night, one of the first times we worked the Sportatorium, I think one of them actually called it the Freebird Door because you remember in the Sportatorium you'd come out of the locker room and you would go down a concrete ramp through the seats to get to the ring. And it was downhill before the match was fine with security for taking the heels, but uphill if you got some heat, even with the security, you're going uphill through those mad fans. So they told us the first time that we worked a Sportatorium that their rule was if it was a hot finish, they'd take the heels out the side door. Remember that little side door was like 15 feet from the ring because the Sportatorium was weird. The first time we worked the Sportatorium, we went up the ramp, and we were there for 6 months every Friday night. We never went up again. We always went out the free, and they called it the Freebird Door.
I had to park over there a few times, or either I would get a signal from Bill Colley, okay, go get the car, side door, and I'd have to just get the bags, get everything over there, and then just have all 4 doors open because I didn't know which way they were coming, and then flying every door, and then we'd take off, and the doors would shut automatically as I took off that fast.
You know, Jim,
that was
you
the
were
way
here.
that the Heels left the building in the old days, right? Ted, you
were
played
here.
in Grizzly Smith's trunk one time, didn't you?
Oh, well, you know, what happened was when I did the angle with JYD, and I told Grizz, I said, you know, the first time we wrestled in New Orleans, I said, Grizz, I said, I'm not driving my car to New Orleans. And he said, why? I said, because it'll be on blocks when I come out.
Exactly.
He said, okay. He says, then you ride with me. So we go down and we work the first match after the angle on television. And of course, you know, JYD beats me from pillar to post, chases me around the ring, and does everything. And then of course I screw him for the rematch, and the people are hot and everything. So I go back and I shower. Riz comes walking in the dressing room. He looked at me just shaking his head, and I said, what? I said, something wrong with the match? He said, the match was great. I said, so what are you upset about? He said, they slipped my tires, all 4 of them. Because I rode with him, right? I said, see, that's why I didn't bring my car.
Yeah. You know, Jim, you were at the Sportatorium for 6 months. Doesn't it amaze you? And he might have. Gary Hart, Akbar never got, you know, the death threats and the attempts on their lives, and the Freebirds too could have been in the staggering numbers. I'm surprised they made it, you know, for as many years as they did.
You know, when you think about it, honestly, all of us that spent so long on local broadcast television stations in major markets, just insulting people and just doing the most heathenish things that we could possibly do and say to people, that none of us were actually just shot one night somewhere.
Oh my God! I know.
And now they love you.
Oh, and as a matter of fact,
Ted,
one of the stories that I tell on my spectacular one-man show, the Jim Cornette Experience, coming to a market near you, is the time that they phoned in a death threat for you in Little Rock.
That's
you were
right.
You were wrestling. I'm pretty sure Duggan or Magnum, one or the other.
I was working with Duggan, and
that's
they
right.
phoned in this death threat. Go ahead, you tell the story.
Well, just from my perspective, the way I tell it, it is not favorable to you, because they called the building and said, hey, do you have a ringside ticket? No, sold out. Well, shoot, I want to get as close as I can so I can shoot that Ted DiBiase. So we get there, me and Bobby Eaton Descondre, and there's cops everywhere, and they're in the locker room, and we hear about this, right? So they covered Ted like he's the president, right, going out, and they have a great match, and there's no incidents. And the last match right after that is us versus the Rock and Roll Express with me hung in a cage. So now, as they're putting me in this cage and lifting me up over the ring in front of these 6,000 people, I don't have my glasses on. I'm nearsighted, so I can't see 20 feet. I realized that some frustrated attempted assassin who didn't get a shot at Ted because he was covered up by the cops is sitting in the crowd, and I'm hung 20 feet over the ring. He can't hit anything but me. So I dropped down in the bottom of that cage and sunk down in a fetal position and just yelled down at the boys, hurry, hurry. Because the guy came to shoot somebody. He got frustrated for his first pick. Who out there now is
Jim,
got the most heat? I'm the target.
You remember what happened, though, at the end of the night?
I know we got out of there, actually. I didn't know something happened at the end of the night.
Well, yeah, it's like whoever that was came walking back through, you know, like there was like a, in that old Barton Coliseum, and you go through the curtain, you know, you would go up either to the left or up to the right to the prospective dressing rooms.
Yeah, where the big elephant door where they brought trucks in, you'd enter that area and you'd go right for the heels and left for the baby faces.
Well, this is, you know, after, you know, like everybody's getting ready to go home, and you know, like I'm up the top and Duggan's out there, and whoever it was comes through the curtain, and you know, it said, you know, I don't know what they said, you know, and then I think Duggan said, you know, what are you doing back here? You know, you're not supposed to be back here. And it said, I'm looking for DiBiase, and went into the bag thing, and Duggan got him. They came back there.
Oh my God, I never knew this.
Yeah, and then but Duggan grabbed the guy, and the police. Yeah, I mean, the police got on the guy and took him out of there.
Did he have anything in his bag, or did they open it up in front of you?
You know what? I didn't wait to find out. But the funny stories that back then, it's like now, it's like, when you go to a wrestling show, none of these young guys, they don't have to worry about the fans attacking them or getting in a fight or anything. And oh my gosh, I remember one time in Lake Charles, I had wrestled JYD, and I'm leaving as I go to get in my car, and like two deputies walk me out to my car. As I go to get in my car, some guy just tries to take a pot shot at me, and I snatched his arm. I took him to the ground. I got on him, and back then the cops would let you go a little bit, and then they pull you off, but they'd let you get a little, and so the guy says, "Go ahead, Ted. We'll take care of this guy." And so as I'm driving on home, I realized that when in the scuffle that my watch had popped off, and I'd lost my watch. So we come back to Lake Charles like 2 weeks later or whatever, and so it's a rematch, and I'm standing in the ring waiting for him to introduce JYD, and from behind me I hear some guy go, "Hey, DiBiase," and I turn around. He's standing in about the third row of ringside on his chair waving my watch at me. Oh my gosh! It was all
those people in Lake Charles were even meaner than the rest of them down there, and that's saying something. That they would put Drano in the water gun, try to shoot Akbar in the eyes. When I first got there, they told me all the things they tried to do to the managers.
Yeah.
And actually, Michael and Terry, and this may have been before right as they got buddy. Grizzly told us that they came to Lake Charles a couple of different times, and the fans cut their tires. So that time they drove to the police station. The police brought them over to the matches, and the fans cut the police car's tires that brought them to the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
Wow.
We rented a car. We rented a car outside of town. The first time I went with Terry and them down, and I'm like, why? We drove all of this way from Irving, Texas to here, and then why do we rent a car 30 miles? Did y'all not see the signs? Do y'all not know? We're like 30 miles. They're like, no, not driving a car. Learned our lesson. We actually rented a car to go there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually $14.95 a day. That's what Terry said. No, get the insurance, $14.95 a day, not a problem. We'll be back in a few hours. There was no chrome on this brand new Lincoln when we brought it back. There was no chrome.
Well, we're coming up on the end of this first hour, and I want to give the floor to Connie. Is there a story that you want to tell while we're closing up here? We got a few more minutes before we tell our guests good night, and I appreciate y'all hanging on. Is there any kind of story you want to tell since you kind of been hanging back tonight?
No, that's not particularly a story, but I'm really glad that these two guys are who are on here, because Terry had a lot of admiration for both of them. He always talked to Cornette, had just a great mind for the business. He loved Terry. You were like a brother to him. There's nothing, never a negative thing said, and it couldn't have been any better, I don't think. And I really appreciate it. He would not even believe that the recognition that he still gets. He always would just say, hey, I'm just going to work. It's my job. And he would tell our kids that at school. He would always say that, like, if anybody gives you trouble because they saw me getting my ass whooped last night, or I whooped some of their favorite guy, tell them, look, that's just my dad's job. It's what I do. Just like their dad might be a plumber, or might be a carpenter, or might be whatever. He said, just tell him, look, that's just my dad's job, and he's no different than anybody else. And that's, that was just him.
Yeah.
So, and he wanted everybody to get 100%. And he had a one lady that was always sat at the front row in the sportatorium, and she was our friend. I guess he picked her out at it. He always would get a kick out of her. And she just passed away not long ago. And I just remember him always saying, if I ever was sick, hungry, or broke down, I could find that lady right there and she'd feed me. And that's what that was him. He enjoyed the people. He enjoyed watching them. And everybody, the guys today, I know Ted can vouch for that for sure. Y'all, they'll never know what y'all had. They'll never know. Putting 6 people in a car, no seatbelt, you get to there, everybody, and then all of you in a room, sleeping in a chair, whatever, the camaraderie that y'all have. It's kind of a sad thing in a way. Everybody pitch in and get that trans money and go on down the road. That camaraderie, they'll never get to have that.
You're right, Connie. It was a different time and a different era, and different feel. And I mean, and again, it's like we were all a family, and that was it. And it's good because we shared just something that was so unique that, unless you've lived that life, there's no way that you could ever explain it to anybody. But on top of all of Terry's enormous talent, and I mean, he just was unbelievably talented. He had one of the biggest hearts anybody ever. He'd literally give you the shar off his back.
Yeah, this weekend in Coastal Maine, Mick Foley told me this week, and he said, I still have, when I went to Japan the first time, I was scared to death. Terry took me basically by the hand and got me through, and he said, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. He said, and he had some little Walkman speakers that he bought over there for his Walkman, and he gave them to Mick, and Mick still has them. He said, I wouldn't trade them for $1 million. It was like he made me feel so comfortable, and he was right, and I was okay. But that's how he gave the shirt off his back.
Yeah.
Hey, Connie, I'll tell you, Ted said it so well, but besides the fact, from the wrestling fan standpoint, they still remember him because the Freebirds not only were a hot team at their time, but they changed tag team wrestling. They if you talk about the original rock and roll team, wasn't actually the Fabs, it was the Freebirds. But as a person, Terry, he was the perfect counterpoint to Michael, let's say.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing.
Where Michael could be the abrasive guy and the bad cop, there was Terry and Bam Bam and the biggest guy in the room and had the biggest smile on his face.
And Jim, you're so right, because Michael was like the long range idea guy. He was kind of like the glue that held the whole thing together. But in the ring general was Gordy.
Michael, and Ted, see if you agree with this. I know we're running on time, but Michael always caught flack that he couldn't work. That's why they put Buddy Roberts in the team, because Michael could talk, but he was a rotten worker. Michael bluffed his way through not being able to work better than anybody in the history of wrestling, though.
I tell him that all the time. I love him like a brother. I had a strap match with him, and I said, has anybody ever told you this is a work?
Anyway,
but hey, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this also. And Connie, it's great to talk to you again. Ted, you too. But I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm going to see you in September, right? Am I not seeing Jim? I'm going to see Jim in September at your show. Okay.
Oh yes, there you go.
Jim. Yeah, Jim's going to be in Fort Worth in September. Jim, I want to thank you. I want to say this to you and Ted and to memory Terry Gordy. For a kid who didn't have a whole lot when he was growing up, I got into professional wrestling, and it's because of guys like Terry Gordy, Jim Cornette, and Kenny DiBiase that y'all hear this all the time. It's a feud. I'm not going to do the whole, it's still real to me, damn it. But I will say that y'all really made a lot of people very happy, and I appreciate. When I got to meet Johnny Valentine, I really started to appreciate more of what you went through, and I want to thank you. And I know Michael feels the same way. I want to thank you for all the years. Ted, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Connie, you've been nothing but supportive of what we're doing down here. You came in June. You let us honor Terry. Thank you. And Jim, I want to thank you for helping us and coming down in September.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for asking.
It's been my pleasure. Connie, God bless you.
Appreciate it, y'all. Thanks so much. He would be very honored tonight.
Yeah, we miss him.
God bless y'all.
All right. Well, thank y'all very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a first hour. We're going to go right into our second hour. If there's anybody who is hanging on the line to talk about Terry Gordy, and if you still want to, we will get to you in just a few moments as IHWE Radio goes into our second hour, Blog Talk Radio.
Now, get up out your seats. Coming to the ring. Now, but I'm wondering if you can bring in with one win, no losses, undefeated in the streets, weighing in over 300 pounds. IHWE Radio. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I be singing. I'm here to get that crowd crowd loud. I'm wondering if you can bring it. And the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I'll be singing, but I hear to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I'll be singing, I'm here to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I'll be singing, but I hear to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on hour number 2 of IHWE Radio, and we have a 404 number on the line. If you want to call, who's on the line with us? Okay. Apparently somebody's just listening. So, all right, we're back here on IHWE Radio. I want to thank Connie Gordy, the great Jim Cornette, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, for taking the time to spend with us tonight and celebrating the life and the career of Texas Wrestling Hall of Famer Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Michael, sorry you didn't get to jump in there, but what a first hour that was.
Oh, that was an amazing first hour, man, but there was no way I was going to try to jump in the middle of any conversation that was going on at that point in time, especially with Jim Cornette. I am a little gun-shy, so I'll see him in September. I'm just going to kind of kick back and wait.
What a great first hour. The respect and the love for people in our business is amazing. And I'm just sending the $1 Million Man an email here. I need to actually do it through email, not through Facebook. So, but again, thank you all three. Real quick, we want to real quick, we're going to go ahead and promote the sites of our guests since they didn't get a chance to do so. And you can find all of Jim Cornette's information at jimcornette.com. His pop culture collectibles, his pro wrestling memorabilia, the information on the Jim Cornette Experience, his podcast. He's having a live Jim Cornette Experience coming to Fort Worth, Texas. That is coming on Sunday, September 28th in Fort Worth, Texas, and that'll be updated on Jim's website in the next few weeks. He's got everything updated up until August, so we want to thank him for coming on. And let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and get the $1 Million Man's. I'm going to get his information up here. I know he has a website. I'm going to Google that really quick. But you can also find Jim Cornette at Twitter, at thejimcornette.com. He does have a weekly podcast. This is the worst plug in the history of plugs, and I do apologize. Michael, help me out here. Talk.
You got all the information, man. This is your show. You produced it. Unfortunately, this is one of the few times that David and I did not have a complete game plan. We had a tribute show. For the second hour, we're kind of, yeah.
$1MillionDollarMan.com for Ted DiBiase. So JimCornette.com for Jim Cornette, $1MillionDollarMan.com for Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase is still going around the country doing speakings. He does Fan Fest, all that good stuff. Jim Cornette can be found on Twitter at TheJimCornette on Twitter, and the $1 Million Man is on Twitter at MDM for $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase on Twitter as well. So you can catch them both. Connie is on Facebook. Connie Gordy, if you want to find her, if she will accept, you can chat with Connie as well. So we do want to thank all of them for joining us. We're going to wrap this show up here in about 20 minutes. Thank God tonight, Michael, we didn't have any technical difficulties. Real quick, next week here on IHWE Radio, it will be a kickback to 80s pop culture. It'll be the pop culture phenomenon known as the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. We will have alumni from the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling here next week. We're still working on confirming specific guests. And then on July 30th, it will be a historic night. It'll be an IHWE Radio followed by the season premiere of IHWE TV on YouTube. So that will be a big night. So, indeed. So, anyway, first hour was amazing. I want to thank Derek King. I want to thank Derek King of Coastal Mania, Coastal Wrestling Federation. This past weekend was Coastal Mania, the big, massive convention and event that was talked about for many, many months. It had the return of Kevin Von Erich. Of course, he came back for Slammiversary. It was Marshall and Ross wrestled Al Farad and Akbar Farad. Al Farad's an IHWE Hall of Famer, as is their corner man, Black Bart. Kevin was there in his son's corners. Also, there was an IHWE Championship defense. Black Bart forced Matt Riviera and Tim Storm to wrestle each other for the IHWE Championship. And I know it ended on a disqualification after Tim Storm smashed a beer bottle over Matt Riviera's head. Tempers got heated. Apparently everything is copacetic in the Empire. Time will tell. But James Beard was the referee. He wore his IHWE Hall of Fame polo all night. He was representing us. That Tim Storm Matt Riviera match will be on IHWE TV in the forthcoming weeks. I talked to Derek King, and he said he would make that footage available to me so we could put it on IHWE TV. And I do encourage everybody to buy the Coastal Mania DVD when it comes out. There was a lot of talent, probably more recognizable talent under one roof than any show I've seen in the last decade here in Texas, excluding WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor. There was a lot of stars there, and I give them props for what they did. And but I do want to thank them for allowing IHWE to be a part of such a massive show. It's the first time ever that the IHWE Championship was defended in Galveston, and that's kind of a big deal. Galveston's a huge, historic Texas city. And, so that match will be on IHWE TV here soon. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. This coming Sunday, we have Texas Legends Reunion. Eric Emery returns to Texas for the first time in 2 decades. So that'll be cool. Michael, is there anything you want to touch bases on while we've got a few minutes?
Just following your Facebook, Twitter, and every other social media chapter you got. There's a lot of things going on with you and IHWE and all that's just coming up. You were mentioning yesterday now we're going to have a possible Roku channel.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. IHWE is expanding just beyond anything I would have expected. I mean, man, it's just, the Roku channel. We're doing the TV. We've got a new format coming up for the radio show. I mean, there's just so much going on, including an announcement that we have regarding further expansion, which we'll be talking about July 30th, so people might want to tune in for that one. But you are a busy dude.
Yeah, and I twisted my ankle today, and that's kind of, has hindered me a little bit today. My wife was forcing me to sit down and not do much, and that's not me.
Probably don't take much force, but...
No. Yeah. But it does. It does, actually, because I refuse to just chill. I do that when I lay down at night. I don't like doing it in the middle of the afternoon. So my ankle's feeling a little bit better. I knew we had a big show tonight, so I wanted to be ready to go. But, But, a lot going on. It's just expanding the brand. It's getting it out there. I've had a vision for a long time, and, this is my vision, and, this is the mark I want to leave on the wrestling world down here in Texas. There's a lot of history down here in Texas, and I believe it should be, preserved. And, I'm not doing anything that no one else can't be doing. This is just me. I'm not this, visionary. The YouTube show is nothing that no one else has done. Sheldon Goldberg runs a show up in Boston every week. There's a lot of people out there that have YouTube television shows. We're not doing anything that's revolutionary. It's been done. It hasn't been done down here as far as I know. We're doing it in a different format, and the Roku channel is just another way to distribute content and it's just staying ahead, or not really staying ahead. It's staying on track with technology. I think the days, unless you get syndication, and unless you get good syndication, I think the days of going to the local television station, working out money for a time slot, the most affordable time slots for a promotion that doesn't have national television or national syndication, the most affordable time slots are going to be the ones that aren't too sexy, 2:30 in the morning, or 2 o'clock, or just, there's DVR now. But I am away from that, and I am more on to current technology. Yahoo just picked up Community for a 6th season, I believe. Not a follower of the show. I just remember, but there's so many shows that are becoming online exclusive that you can only watch via a streaming service or via laptop, desktop, Android, Apple device, a gaming console. This is the future. So that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to stay on track with the future. So anyway, hold on. Just getting a message. People bother me when I'm trying to run this show.
How dare
anyway,
we're busy.
Yeah, obviously.
Speaking of, streaming services and the future of TV, this weekend, obviously, we do have the WWE Battleground pay-per-view coming up. I'm sure the network.
Yep.
So, I'm sure, I've kind of got my opinions. We got some good matches. Maybe you and I can kind of, toss our opinions back on that. They seem to have a decent lineup. 20-man battle royal for the Intercontinental title. It was just announced online today that we'll see it on Friday. Obviously, SmackDown was taped yesterday. We'll see it Friday. Adam Rose and Sandow have been pulled from that battle royal. So I'm hoping they don't put them in a match on the pay-per-view because we're not going there. But we've got Chris Jericho versus Bray Wyatt. We've got the 4-way match for the WWE World Heavyweight title, however they all call it now. We've got the Usos versus Rowan and Harper, 2 out of 3 falls. You've got Rusev versus Jack Swagger, which cracks me up now because now all of a sudden Jack Swagger is one of the most popular guys in the WWE. He's basically the new Hacksaw, new Hogan, new Sergeant Slaughter, new whoever's waving the flag and chanting USA. But, this is a good line. I want to watch it. If you got the network, it's $9.99 a month, and you get a pay-per-view. The pay-per-views are included in that. If you think about it, a pay-per-view nowadays is like $55. So one pay-per-view, you just made 6 months. I know I'm doing a little commercial for the WWE network, but from what I read, their numbers aren't good. They could probably use our help.
If you're a fan of the current product or the old school product, it's a bargain. So World Class Championship Wrestling is on there. ECW is on there. The old Crockett pay-per-views are on there. WCW, ECW. The list goes on and on and on. So even if you're a fan of the old school, and I think more content will get added, and more of the old school content, I think there's something for everybody on that show. So
they added Saturday night's main event.
They added the first 3 years of Saturday Night's Main Event. They added 1985 through 1987. So I believe they're still adding. They'll be adding more years to it. There's a lot of old school stuff on there. So if you're a fan of the old school, then jump on there because I think it's a great bargain. So, yeah. So
I'm just gonna throw them out there at you. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I want to get your predictions. We did this a few months ago. You actually picked more winners than I did. So let's just kind of go down the line from what we know is on the card. The 4-way match, we've got Kane versus Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton versus John Cena. Who do you think is going to go?
It's John Cena. I'm pretty sure Brock Lesnar and John Cena is the main event of SummerSlam. Roman Reigns doesn't need to win the title in a 4-way. Kane, as much as I like Kane, he doesn't need the belt. Orton just had it. Cena's the guy right now, as much as people hate it. I like the idea of Cena Lesnar because the last match they had I thought was awesome.
Well, unfortunately, my wife is rooting for Cena. I can't. I'm tired of him. I'd like to see Roman Reigns, but I don't want to see him do it in the 4-way like you said. Supposedly there's talk that he's actually going to win the Rumble in January and go on to WrestleMania one-on-one.
That's the way it should be.
So, yeah, they've got plans up through this. We all know, we've seen the video online. We've seen the promo poster that leaked out. And we all know that on Monday, Paul Heyman said he had a plan C if they were interested.
Yep.
We know plan C is Brock Lesnar. It's kind of obvious.
And it'll be good.
Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho.
Bray Wyatt. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Not everyone, I don't know where the future of the program is going. I don't know if there's a rematch. I think Jericho could win, then Bray could beat him in the rematch. I don't know. So that's a toss-up. It could go either way because I think they're going to rematch at SummerSlam.
I'm going with Bray Wyatt myself here. And with the 20-man over-the-top rope battle royal for the Intercontinental title, there's so damn many people in there, I can't even think of all the lists. So right off the top of my head, I would just, for the hell of it, I'm going to pick Rob Van Dam. But that's more of that's just he's my favorite. I mean,
I don't think it'll be him. I think that title has been regulated to give it to one of the smaller guys, or not one of the smaller, one of the younger guys. I think it's going to go to a Cesaro or somebody like that.
Interesting match here. I did forget about this one. AJ Lee versus Paige. That's just confusing as all. I don't know what's going on in that one.
It's just something different. That's the match that needed to happen months ago. That was a lot of people want to see that match. If they're given time, I think they can have a good match. We'll see. Hoping they get enough time and they get to go in there and hone their skills and show everybody. I think it'll be good. I think AJ retains.
We're going along the same line here, man. We're not making a different picks here. Usos versus the Wyatt family. 2 out of 3 falls.
They had a killer match last month. The Wyatts have got to go over. They are the modern-day Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen. And that's not a knock on Hansen and Brody. That's not saying they were as good as Hansen and Brody. Nobody ever will be. But if Hansen and Brody were alive today, if Brody and Hansen were teaming up today, that's the match I'd want to see. That would be like the Road Warriors and Demolition. That would be like, that's the match. So I think that the way their style that they work, their look, they don't look like everybody on the card. Their mannerisms, their psychology, the way they walk around, they remind me of Hansen and Brody. And that's why I want to see them win. They have booked the Wyatt family perfectly as far as Harper and Rowan. They can do anything, but you have to work to get them off their feet. They've done a really good job, and they've done a real good job of making the tag titles mean something again. The Usos have done a 180 from where they were last year. They were guys who weren't where they needed to be, and they just seemed to be taking up room on their roster. They had that match with the Shield last year at Money in the Bank, and they performed a 180, and now they're one of the most over and exciting tag teams in the company. Wyatts need a win. It's time. But the only question is who beats those guys? Because, once they get the titles, I don't think anybody should beat them.
Well, just to say my opinion, I'm going with the Wyatt family. I'm glad they're doing 2 out of 3 falls because we keep having the Wyatts win the non-title match, then the Usos win the title shot.
Right.
And then the next night it goes back and forth. 2 out of 3 falls. Each one, the way I see it, it's going to come down to 1 fall each. It's going to come down to that 3rd fall, and it's going to go to Harper and Rowan. And honestly, I think that could actually be probably the best match of the card because those guys have already shown what they can do. Their match last month at the pay-per-view was absolutely insane. I loved it.
Yeah.
So on that one, I'm going to have to go with that. Now, this is interesting. Harper and Rowan,
like I said, they are the future of the company. They're big guys who don't work like big guys. They work like big guys when they have to, but they can sell, they can bump, and they can make anybody look good. So
I'd say next year we're going to see Luke Harper as a singles guy. I think he'll eventually.
That's a very good. That's a very good possibility. You could. There could be a money program with Luke Harper and Roman Reigns. They're building the future. As many people get mad about the product, they are building the future. They just signed Kenta. Rumor that Devitt signed. Rumor that Steen signed. They are working on the future. They make bad decisions. Yes, they will continue to make bad decisions. No matter if Vince is running the company or Paul's running the company, they will continue to make bad decisions or make decisions that not everybody agrees with. But the in-ring product is fantastic. Not every segment is 4 stars, but there's guys out there that are trying, and they are pushing so many young stars, more than I've ever seen, honestly. Back in the 80s, it was Hogan and whoever he was in a program with, and then Warrior was coming up, and then you went from the 90s where in the early 90s it seemed like the only 2 guys that were getting pushed were Bret and Shawn. That was it. And then, you had the Attitude Era, and then you had Austin and Rock coming up, and Hunter, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. But, I mean, now it just seems like so many people are jockeying for that position. I'm really excited about the in-ring product. But Harper and Rowan are the future of the company, in my opinion.
Now, the next match, this one's going to be kind of interesting, is the one I talked earlier. We got the Bulgarian Brute, Russian, I don't get that, sorry, Rusev, and you got Jack Swagger.
This program, for whatever reason it was concocted, it worked. Jack Swagger is legitimately a wrestler. He's got the education. He's got the amateur background. He's got the size. They have pulled the carpet from under his feet so many times. He's got one of the best talkers in the business, Dutch Mantell. And Dutch, with the ability that he has, the gift of gab, as Jim Ross would say, in one segment, within a few minutes, he took Jack Swagger from a guy who was getting a few We the People to the whole building doing it. Lana and Dutch have a very good antagonist-protagonist thing going on. I don't know what they engage each other really well. I would put Swagger over on Sunday, and I would have a flag match at SummerSlam. Scared to put Rusev under right now? I think he would be fine, because then you made Swagger the guy who beat Rusev, and now you've got Swagger. And you kind of do something different with him after he's finished with Rusev. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. They're going to do their own thing. But hopefully it's not just they have a match on Sunday, Swagger goes under, and that's it.
I'm going to kind of go with a DQ. I think Swagger's going to get the win, but it's going to be a versus qualification because I think somehow Lana's going to get involved, which is going to set up the big match for SummerSlam.
Needs to be a flag match. I mean, that's simple wrestling 101. They can, and hopefully they won't screw it up. It has to be a flag match. So, I want to see Dax versus Lana. I'd pay money to see that. A lot of money. More than $9.99 a month.
And we got one more match here. I forgot, looking on my list, I almost forgot here. You got Dean Ambrose versus the Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins. I'm going to go.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, I'm going to go first on this one because out of the two, Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins, I see Seth Rollins unfortunately kind of going the way Damian Sandow did last year. He's not going to capitalize and win with his Money in the Bank contract. I don't see it happening because you're talking about the future of the company and the building the future of this company, and the guy who's going to be in that main event spot eventually, along with Roman Reigns and Luke Harper and some of those guys, is going to be Dean Ambrose. He left the Shield. I mean, in the Shield, the man was the talker. He had the voice. He had the skills on the mic and all that. He's out of the Shield. his character, what he's doing is over like crazy. Last pay-per-view, Rollins is going up for the ladder to climb to the crowd just goes nuts because Dean Ambrose is coming out. Dean Ambrose is one of the guys that's going to be the future. So in this match, I'm picking Ambrose, and eventually I think there's going to be a match where Ambrose is going to want that briefcase, and I'm seeing that maybe that's where they're going to go, and then Ambrose is going to get it. I don't see Seth Rollins going on and winning with the briefcase. He's good, but he's small. Yes, they have a lot of the smaller guys, but Seth Rollins is really small. I can't see Seth Rollins cashing in and winning that title.
I disagree with you.
But for tomorrow's match, I'm going with Dean Ambrose.
I disagree with you respectfully. I think Rollins will win the title. I think they picked him to break out of the Shield for a reason. Everybody thought it would be Ambrose because he has an eccentric way of doing promos. And he was the darkest character out of the three. But he did not. They picked Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins will be the heavyweight champion. When? Don't know. Can I say 100%? No. I think he will be. I think this match ends. It should end within 5 minutes. Should be a double countout. Those guys have been doing nothing but brawling. There's no reason for them to come out on Sunday and have a wrestling match. All Dean Ambrose has been doing is running in and attacking Seth Rollins, and he has screwed up two opportunities to cash in Money in the Bank. It should not be a wrestling match. This should be a fight, and this should be over with within a few minutes. Count out, double disqualification, whatever. Ambrose has got a bright future, so does Seth Rollins, so does Roman Reigns. You have an opportunity to take three guys who were fantastic together, and now they all can go have a successful single run. All of them can. They all have got the skills. But Sunday, if I'm booking the show, that match is going 5 minutes. It gets thrown out, and those two guys are having a match at SummerSlam for the Money in the Bank brief. And whatever decision you want to make is fine. But I think Rollins is world champion material because CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, HBK. Rollins isn't that much smaller than Shawn. Rollins isn't that much smaller than Brett. I think they will go with Rollins as a heavyweight champion. Don't know how long, don't know when, can't say 100%, but I do think they will. But that match should only go a few minutes on Sunday. Throw it out. Rematch in SummerSlam.
We disagree on one match, I think, on this entire show.
Well, I forgot about Cameron and Naomi, and most people were laughing at that.
I don't care about Cameron and Naomi.
Well, no, and that's fine. That's fine, but Naomi is one of the most talented people they have on the roster, and she actually goes out there and tries. Cameron is annoying. That's established. But Matt Avery, are you listening? Put that in your damn instant message. Anyway, Cameron and Naomi, they've got their thing. They've actually got a little program. Good, gives Divas more time. Hopefully Naomi puts her away. And I see Naomi get a run as the Divas champion because I think she's different and I think she does a lot of cool stuff in the ring. So, the reality show aside, I think Naomi's very talented. So, anyway, it's a good lineup.
I'll probably go with Naomi. So
the undercard is actually is a little bit better than what it normally is. There's a lot of every match seems to have a pretty good story. So congratulations on that. SummerSlam's going to be it's obviously the biggest pay-per-view of the summer. Brock Lesnar's coming back, which I love. I think Brock Lesnar's money. I think it's asinine for anybody to say otherwise. He's one of the biggest draws in UFC history. And, he beat the streak. Everybody got a little boo-hoo on that, but it's wrestling. That is what it is. He can legitimately beat anybody in the ring. He can beat up anybody in the ring, and that's a shoot. So, anyway, no, Matt Avery, I did not call you out. I was giving you a name drop because I had met you. Got it, brother? So, anyway, It's my broadcast journalist at IHWE, and he's messaging me right now. So he wants attention, so that I gave him attention. So anyway, Brock Lesnar coming back, good business. Can't wait to see it. Whatever he does, hopefully he wins the championship. Because I don't care what his schedule is. Brock Lesnar's an attraction, and I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's been back. I don't care what his schedule is. He has daughters. God forbid the guy wants to spend as much time at home with his kids. I wish all the wrestling fans that got on social media and started complaining about his schedule. They're like, oh, he's never around. He's a part-timer. He wants to be home with his kids. He nearly died dealing with diverticulitis. And until you've dealt with that, I don't want to hear it. I haven't. My stepmother has. He wants to spend time with his kids. Because one day, guess what? He's not going to wake up. So God forbid the guy wants to stay at home for as much as he can and spend time with his kids. He doesn't want to go on the road full time. So he worked out his deal. Good for him. When he's there, he gives 100%. And no one can say otherwise. So nobody can say otherwise. You got Brock Lesnar bumping on his head on the floor. So anyway, I'm done. Get off my soapbox. It makes me taller. I like getting on it. So
got to be a big soapbox.
Yeah, save you the joke, Michael. All right, let's wrap this up. I want to thank Connie Gordy, the $1 Million Man, DiBiase, Jim Cornette. Jim, thank you for going to OVW today and doing some promo for IHWE TV. Fans, stay tuned to IHWEnow.com when you can see those. We're going to probably put those into our upcoming television shows. July 30th, it does begin. The first weekly episodic Dallas-Fort Worth wrestling program in a long time. I'm extremely proud of it. Yes, Roku channel is coming. I don't know when. I'm not going to come on here and tell you it's going to be next week. We don't know when it's going to roll out. There's a lot of work that's going into this. We're attempting to acquire libraries of different wrestling promotions over the years that are no longer in business, defunct wrestling promotions that have television masters hanging around it, haven't been picked up by WWE. We're looking into that. Just a lot of content. I want wrestlers to be able to watch their matches and, whatever way possible. So, starring Matt Avery. Matt Avery wanted me to say that. We got to get him on here sometime. You think Cornette was bad, Michael? Wait till you meet Matt Avery.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, you won't after you meet him. So,
okay.
He's going to message me here in about 3, 2, 1 saying, ah! And there it is. There you go. So anyway, we're working on that. We don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you when the rollout's going to happen. I don't know. We're looking probably at the winter of late this year, early next year. Don't know. So, but we are going to do it. We've gotten the intel on how to do it. And I'm working with my production team. We're getting everything converted. So it's a big process. But I can guarantee you one thing. It will not cost anybody one dime. I'm saying that right now. I will not ask for a penny from anybody for the Roku channel. Content will be on there. If they allow me, and then I'll reiterate, if they allow me to put content on there without charging anybody, which I'm sure they will, I will not charge anybody anything to watch wrestling. That's not my thing. I want people to enjoy wrestling for free from Texas again. So that's the way it should be. I want everybody from around the world to be able to enjoy wrestling. It's not the way it used to be. We're not world class. We're not trying to be world class for IHWE, and we want everybody to sample our product. If you like it, great. If you don't, we understand. But watch it. These guys and ladies down here are working extremely hard. Jim Cornette's coming in September. Stan Larry Hansen's coming. We've got a lot of people coming from the CAC, Michael and Joe included. It's going to be good times. But anyway, IHWEnow.com, Anti-Bullying Assembly, IHWE TV, IHWE Showdown, IHWE Old School Hustle. I'm tired. My ankle hurts. I'm signing off. Michael, you got anything else?
I'm just going to say, as always, find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Encyclopedia World Class. You can find the IHWE Radio fan page on Facebook. Just search for IHWE Professional Wrestling Radio. We have actually gone from 81 to 253 likes in the last week, so it's picking up. We're going to be posting links to the show and all that there, so go ahead and find it. Next week, we do have confirmations for our Glow show. We will be joined by Grimlina, MTV, Hollywood, Dallas, and Little Mama. They will be joining us. I'm trying to get another guest or two on. We'll see how that one goes, but those ones have definitely confirmed. It's going to be a great show. July 30th, as he said, IHWE TV premiere. We will have many of the stars of IHWE TV. The first episode will be joining us that night. We will also be introducing our new co-host, new segment host, and talking about the new format for IHWE Radio, which begins August 6th. So, lots to look forward to. Got a message just a few minutes ago from Connie Gordy. She wanted to say thank you for everything. She had a great time. And so, once again, we did what we do best, and we entertained. And these tribute shows are starting to become one of our bigger episodes. These are the ones that people like. So we are looking into some new tribute episodes. I know for a fact in November we will have a tribute to Eddie Guerrero. And then in February we will have a tribute to David and Kerry Von Erich. We will have a couple more before that. So this is in the planning stage. This is becoming something that people enjoy and something that turns out to be some of our bigger shows. So we're working on it. I have a new production assistant coming online. Is going to be helping me with some stuff to promote and produce. David's going to be sticking on as talent coordinator to help us book these guests, because I will tell you this right now, he booked this entire show. I messaged Connie. I said, hey, we want you to come on. She said, great. He got a hold of Cornette. He got a hold of DiBiase. I know there's some other people he got a hold of. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make contact. This was all David. Henceforth why he is staying on to be talent coordinator for this show after he leaves as the co-host, because he can get us the guests, and then we'll produce, and we're going to put on the best IHWE radio we can to complement IHWE TV, to complement IHWEnow.com, the IHWE holiday special, which I'm sure is coming. We're probably going to see It's the Great Pumpkin, IHWE, I don't know. David has a lot of ideas. I would pay to see that cartoon, though, man. Bunch of IHWE stars hanging out in the pumpkin patch.
Don't test me. Don't test me. I'll do it. I'll do it for sure. Well,
your wife's probably back there going,
when Connie, Connie messaged me just a few minutes ago, and she, she said some things, and I'll keep that between us, me and her. For what she said, that means the world to me. And that's why we do this. Jim Cornette got on, $1 Million Man to DiBiase got on, and Connie got on, and they were genuinely excited to talk to each other. We don't know what tomorrow will bring us. We don't know. We don't know who's going to be here tomorrow, who's going to be here next week. We don't know. There are not enough wrestling reunions. If there was one every day, it might be enough. There's not enough. So, for the people that went to Coastal Mania, I'm glad you went. I wasn't able to make it. I'm glad it happened, because it brought people together that hadn't seen each other in a long time. And memories are what we have. We don't take U-Hauls with us when we go. Memories is what we leave. And that means the world. That's why the Hall of Fame is important. That's why Waterloo, Iowa is important. That's why the CAC is important. That's why Gulf Coast is important. That's why Amsterdam's important. All of them are important because it brings people together. So that's what we're all about down here. We're about bringing people together. Connie's going to be here in September. Barbara Goodish is going to be here. We're going to have people from the CAC. Stan's going to be here. Cornette's going to be here. Superstars, present, future, the past. Everything's going to come together, converging into Fort Worth, Texas, for the first major show in a long time in this territory. And I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder if I was associated with it, much less putting it together. It's a lot of work. I'm extremely excited. It is a lot of work, believe me. But we're going to get it together. Next week, the Glow Girls will be on. July 30th, Rob Moore, the 3 competitors in the DFW title match, Americos, Gregory James, Ashley Jacobs, Sarah Morgan from the Lex Terry Show, and Patrick Scott Patterson, the video game brand media personality, who an XCW alumni of XCW Wrestling, which is on national television and have worldwide DVD distribution. He's an XCW alumnus. So we'll talk more about that in the forthcoming week. I'm sitting down with Eric Kirby this weekend to get an interview for IHWE TV. I will try to remember to bring my voice recorder, and maybe we can get a few minutes with Eric for IHWE Radio in the forthcoming week. So I will try my darndest. And Michael, about that other thing, remind me on Sunday because I'll be 100 miles. I'll be going 100 miles to nothing. So anyway, again, folks, thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. If we did not get you on tonight, we do apologize. An hour is not long enough when you have people talking about someone that they love. It's not long enough. We did the best that we could. We do apologize. Yeah, that's all I can say. Next week, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, IHWNow.com for all the archives. And thank you so much wherever you are. Michael, close us out.
All right, everybody. As always, as he said, we've always said, go out, enjoy some wrestling, make a memory. You don't know when it's going to end, but we do know for a fact that if things don't end for us, actually. You can join us next week, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, here on the sunny coast of California for another episode of IHWE Radio. Good night, everybody.